Ladies and gentlemen, Steelers Nation, my name is Justin Ostad, a.k.a. Cold Steel from SteelersCountry.com. What is going on, chat? I see quite a bit of you guys have made it in here. Tonight, we're going to be talking about three quarterbacks that are not only linked to the Pittsburgh Steelers for this upcoming draft, but specifically three guys that I personally think could potentially be wearing black and gold come the 2022 season. 007, what's going on? He says, is this JB? Yes, indeed. I unofficially announced, I don't know if I officially announced it or not. I'm pretty sure I did, but channel is now called Steelers Country. I launched the website, SteelersCountry.com. You guys should definitely be checking that out. Steeler Y360 Nation says, what's up, Cold? Let's do roll check, man. Let's see who's all in chat. We got The Fiend. As always. We got Danielle. As always. We got Steeler Lee in the building. He says, what's up, family? What is going on? I hope everyone enjoyed their Friday thus far. Although most of us probably had a job to attend to, so I'm sure the relaxation period is going to be beginning very shortly for some of you. Who else we got in here, man? Of course, 007. He says, what is this? What is this? It's just, you know, same person, different brand. That's all. I'm still Cold Steel. You can call me Just Blaze. It is what it is. Mad513 in the building. He says, hey, yo. Hey, man, rest in peace to Razor Ramon. For my wrestling fans out there, the man unfortunately passed away. Rest in peace, Razor Ramon. Who else we got? We got TJ Black. So anyways, man. The Fiend says cold as a god. I don't know about that, but I appreciate it, man. Hey, before we get into this, man, shout out to the sponsor of the channel, FOCO. You guys definitely want to go check them out, FOCO.com. And if you use promo code 412SC in checkout, you'll save 10% off your order. But anyways, man, let's not waste any time, because I know you guys want to talk quarterback. Although I'm going to put this out on record. I think the Steelers are doing a smokescreen. I really personally believe that this team is doing a smokescreen. I'm not 100% convinced that the Steelers are going to be spending their 20th overall pick in the first round on a quarterback. And honestly, if they go defense or quarterback in the first round, I'll be happy regardless. But I'm starting to think all of this showboating we've seen last week with the Steelers staff, including Mike Tomlin, I think it's all for show. Maybe to confuse some of these other teams like the Panthers. Maybe even the Lions, to reach up and grab a quarterback in the first round, leaving some defensive players to slip down to us. And personally, even though I'm going to, make some of these quarterbacks that I'm about to talk about look absolutely amazing, and I'm going to brag about some of their qualities, I personally would much rather see the team go defensive line, cornerback, maybe. I don't know about cornerback in the first, but hell, there may even be a safety somewhere. I wouldn't even mind seeing the Steelers, drop back in the first round and acquire a higher second pick so they can get their wide receiver. But nonetheless, man, Alan says, just Blaze, Cold Steel, Steelers Country. It's all good. Let's not go quarterback this year, please. I agree. I just wanted to get this specific topic out of the way before I drop the mock draft. Simply because my mock draft is not going to have us going quarterback in the first round. And the only reason I haven't dropped the mock draft is because we're waiting to see if the Steelers sign a safety, which I really thought they would have done by now. Because if they sign a safety, then the mock draft that I have in mind really would be obsolete. And that's kind of a spoiler alert for what I have. So I'm kind of hoping that over the weekend or early next week even, although I kind of want to get this video up by tomorrow or Sunday. Yeah, dude, I like Chris as well, TJ Black, the wide receiver out of Ohio, for sure. And I think he would be worthy of a first round, 20th pick. Me personally. Mad513 says, just shows you they're not really high on Edmonds. It's very interesting. But I'll say this, that's not 100% guaranteed. Because when you look at the Juju situation, a lot of us assume the Steelers didn't offer him a contract, but that is not the case. And this is all according to Juju, who had an interview this week. And I suggest you guys go look that up. But he talked about not wanting to come back to Pittsburgh because he felt like he needed to do what's best for him and his brand. Which I guess in this case was going to Kansas City. I say all that to say this. There's a possibility that the Steelers did offer Edmonds a contract extension. But very possible that maybe he didn't want to come back here because they didn't pick up his 5th-year option. Maybe the fan base doesn't really side with him too much. Maybe all those things play a factor into all that. Just something to think about. Some of the guys we feel like they're not offering contracts to, they actually do get those contract offers, and it just doesn't pan out. Most of the time because of the player. Maybe the Steelers didn't offer the big money that they're looking for. I know in Juju's case, I think that's what it is, although the contract he got from Kansas City is absolutely hilarious. I think it's somewhere close to $4 million, $3 million point something. Comical, man. This guy took scraps to go to Kansas City. Mad513 says, I think we're going defense. I hope we're going defense. Steel Twins, what's going on? I can't wait to get the Steel Twins back on the show, man. And by the way, this is technically the first Steelers Country live. I don't want to say episode, but yeah. This is our first live stream, man. First official live stream. Like I said, I'm still Cold Steel, still the same guy. You're still going to get the same content. It's just that I put a website, to the channel. So, whole new brand. But yeah, man, I want to get the Steel Twins back on him. And we actually have an announcement to make. Not tonight, but coming up for next season. It's a little early, but we've been discussing some business behind, or off stream, I should say. Mad513 says a joint live stream. Well, here's a spoiler. There's going to be plenty of that coming up. In fact, the 3 of us will be in Pittsburgh next month. Which, damn, let's see here. Hold on. Yeah, April 1st is next Friday. So, towards the end of April, we are going to be in Pittsburgh for an entire week. And that'll be good. That'll be fun. Anyways, man, let's get into this discussion. Let's talk about 3 quarterbacks that I could see the Steelers drafting in the first round. Maybe even the second, but for right now, we'll just assume the Steelers go with quarterback at the 20 overall pick. First up, Kenny Pickett. Now, the reason why I put Kenny Pickett here is not because he's the number 1 choice for me. We'll get into that later. But I put Kenny Pickett because he seems to be the favorite among a lot of Steelers fans. In fact, I would put him just slightly behind Malik Willis, which there's a spoiler. That's going to be another quarterback we're going to be talking about. But let's start with Kenny. According to 247 Sports, they say Pickett has been on the NFL's radar for quite some time. He took over as a starter as a sophomore in 2018. And he would undoubtedly have been drafted had he came out the 2019 season. or I should say the 2019 draft, he earned a 75.0 overall grade. But he would have been a day 3 pick, according to them. But a lot has changed since 2019. In fact, last season, as you guys can see on the screen here, Kenny Pickett had his best season overall, 4,319 passing yards, which I believe put him at 6 in college football. 42 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, which was his career low, especially when you look at the ratio. And his QBR was 81.2. Now, I don't need to sit here. Anyone that has watched a little bit of college or a lot of college football and has paid attention to what Pittsburgh did, you would know that it wasn't just all Kenny Pickett. He had a lot of great weapons around him. I would argue that their defense was pretty good, pretty damn good, in fact. So we can't give all the credit to Kenny Pickett. However, if you look at the statistics and you look at what he did last year, and then you combine that with his age, which I do believe he is the oldest out of the quarterbacks that are coming into this draft, he could potentially be, and there's another guy on this list who I could argue he may just be the most NFL-ready quarterback. And personally, even though he's on this list and I say the Steelers could grab him at 20, I don't see him going past the Carolina Panthers. And as Leedy just said, he is 23 years old and turns 24 in June, which means he'll be 24 years old when the NFL season kicks off. Now, me personally, quarterbacks tend to have a very long career in the NFL as long as they stay healthy. So the age really isn't dramatically a factor for me personally. But I will say, being 24 in your rookie year is kind of crazy. And if we're being honest, when you look at the bulk of his career in college, wasn't that impressive in regards to being a first overall pick. Or not first overall, but first round pick. I still would not put Kenny Pickett in a first round. But we all know how teams are in the NFL. They're going to reach. And Carolina has shown the most interest in him outside, of course, Pittsburgh, which, again, I really personally think this is all a smokescreen. I really do. But would I be upset if the Steelers went and got Kenny Pickett? I mean, obviously, I wouldn't be upset because we would have to see how these guys pan out. It's almost the equivalent of being upset that the Steelers drafted Najee Harris last season. And there was quite a few people who were upset that the Steelers went and got a running back in the first round. So, obviously, you can't really judge a player until they show you what they can do at the next level. But I will say this, and I've said it multiple times already in this stream. I would be slightly disappointed because I feel like there's a lot better players at different positions that the Steelers could pull from. Again, specifically defensive players. I feel like we need to continue building that. Even though there's been talks that Tuitt showed up to Pittsburgh today and has been in contact with the team overall, we still don't know quite what he's going to do when he does come back, if he even does. Because a lot of this stuff regarding Tuitt has been a complete mystery even up to this point, even knowing he's been inside those doors as recent as, of today. But going back to Pickett, man, would I be upset? No. I mean, again, I would just be slightly disappointed because I feel like there's other positions. It would be the same situation that it was last season, especially in the second round. Anyone that knows, and Steel Twins can confirm this, I wanted them to go center in the first 2 rounds last year. And of course, Kansas City took the guy that I'm referring to. And he ended up being one of the best centers of the year. Not just of rookies, but because there wasn't really any other ones. Point being, it would be smart and wise for the team to go defense. But if you go Kenny Pickett, you're getting a guy that arguably is NFL ready. But again, that doesn't really align with what the Steelers have done this offseason. They go out and they get Mitch Trubisky. I don't think you're signing Mitch to a 2-year contract to back up Kenny Pickett. And do you really want to have Kenny Pickett sitting on the bench grooming for a year or two? We're talking, it would be Mason Rudolph 2.0. Not saying, I'm not comparing the two players by their play style. I'm just saying, now you got a young quarterback sitting on the bench, and then by the time he becomes a starter, he's 26. And yeah, Leedy, I'm referring to Creed Humphrey, who I really, really thought the Steelers were going to go with. When you consider we really needed center last year, but instead we waited and we got Green, which we all know how that turned out. Creed Humphrey would have been absolutely amazing for this team, but the Steelers know what they're doing, apparently. I do not. I'm just a fan, talking what I think I know. But I want to see what you guys think in chat in regards to Kenny Pickett. What is your thoughts on if the Steelers were to use their 20th overall pick or, God forbid, trade it up to get him? Because, again, I really do feel like the Carolina Panthers are showing the most interest in regards to him. Now, according to PFF, I'll give you guys even more in depth about Kenny. Some of the pros they have listed is accuracy on the move is a big plus. Now, again, that does fit with our offense. We are going to need a quarterback that can escape the pocket. That is no secret. We saw what happened with Ben Roethlisberger last season, was unable to get out of the pocket with the blitz and the offensive line issues. But more specifically, Matt Canada's playbook. RPOs are a thing. So you're going to need a quarterback that's quick on the feet. And we have seen Kenny Pickett and what he can do in that regard. Steel Twin says, I'm very open to quarterback now. Pickett would be my third option and agree he won't make it out of the top 10. And again, that's only because some of these teams have started to express that they are growing desperate, which is very bizarre. But this also proves my point, dude. Like, it would be a perfect storm for the Steelers to go out and get a steal, almost like what they did with TJ Watt years ago. I remember during that draft season, a lot of people didn't think he was going to last as long as he did. And sure enough, he fell right to the Steelers. And honestly, that could be another situation this season if some of these teams go and grab quarterback. There might be a receiver available. There might be a defensive player available. And with the Steelers having so many holes, and with a lot of those positions having great depth in this draft, I mean, it's looking like a nice situation for us. But if we go quarterback, then it just kind of makes you scratch your head a little bit. Especially if they move up. If the Steelers move back, that would be very lovely. Very lovely. And by the way, because I just saw Steeler Lee, he mentioned Baker. What the hell is going on, Steelers? What are we talking about? Hold on. Let me turn the screen back. Really? This is what I've been seeing on Twitter is people are actually discussing the possibility of Baker Mayfield coming to Pittsburgh. What kind of drugs are these people on? And furthermore, if I'm not mistaken, and if for those who have been around on the channel for a while now, you would know that Baker Mayfield is employed by the Steel Twins. That's a little inside joke for those who know. If you know, you know. If you don't know, then you don't. Really though, Baker? Come on, man. Let's not even entertain the idea of that. I don't want to hear this. Oh, let's bring Baker Mayfield to Pittsburgh so he gets revenge on the Browns. No. That sounds cool as a movie, but no. I really, really do not want to entertain that. To me, it just sounds like the other blogs need viewership. So no. This is the last time I'm even talking about that. Anyways. Another pro of Kenny Pickett. He can sting. A hash out of route with ease. Obvious arm talent from the pocket and on the move. Which, again, we saw that especially during the later games of the season. And then last but least, they have him listed as mobile, but always has his eyes downfield, which, again, I can confirm we have seen that. Which is terrific at creating space for his receivers to work. So those are a lot of the pros when it comes to Kenny Pickett. Now this con that I'm about to list may kind of ring a bell with Steelers fans. Because if you've watched Ben Roethlisberger as long as I have, this was also one of his negatives. Holding onto the ball until the bitter end, and he had the second highest time to throw in the country. Now, anyone with a brain would know that this offensive line, basing it off of last season, I know we've improved. We got guys like Daniels in the building now. But this offensive line, just to be honest, has not been good. And until we see what they do on the field this upcoming season, which unfortunately at the time of this recording, we cannot, I am just going to assume that drafting Kenny Pickett would not be smart when your offensive line isn't proven. Especially for a guy who holds onto the ball too long. Which was one of my issues with Ben. And, as a Steelers fan, I had to watch him for 20-some years. So you can only imagine what that did to my heart. Over the years, a lot of games, a lot of stressful games, a lot of turnovers from Ben. And again, I don't want to turn this into a Ben bashing thing, but Pickett holds onto the ball too long. We've seen enough of that for a very long time now. So while his mobileness is very intriguing, and he had a very great season last year, no one's going to, doubt that. The proof is right in front of you. 42 touchdowns, 7 picks, 4,000 plus yards. Played some very good competition. I'm just not sold on Kenny Pickett being the guy for the Steelers. And based on what I've seen in the chats, I think a lot of you would agree with that. So there you have it, man. That is Kenny Pickett. That's my thoughts on that. It would be a no. Now, the next two guys that I'm going to talk about are guys that I actually wouldn't mind seeing the Steelers go with. And as you can see right there, Malik Willis, who had a very, very nice pro day this week. Not sure if anyone in chat got to watch that. Me and the twins actually sat down and watched it together. And I would say the three of us were very impressed with what we saw. Well, Bob had some criticism, and I do agree with him. It goes back to what I said earlier. You got to see what these guys do at the next level. However, he made some great throws. He showcased his ability to get out of the pocket, even though in a real game situation, I think he would have had a little bit more hustle to him. But again, these next two guys, Willis being one of them, these are guys I would not mind. And it would make me feel a little less, disappointed if they go this route. Because the next two guys could sit behind Mitch Trubisky for a year to groom themselves to be the future. Now, Malik specifically, one of his best traits is his arm strength. And his accuracy has been pretty damn good as well. Decision-making is up there. Now, according to PFF, they have his mobility in the basement. This is why I put him at number 2. This is why Willis is number 2 and he's not my number 1 guy. Now, currently, he's projected to go in the top 25, and he's bizarrely ranked 2nd in the class. And this is all according to PFF, which that is, especially the guy they got ranked 1. Steel Twin says, you know my Dan reaction, though. I freaked the F out. Yeah, it was great. I wish we recorded that, man. He's referring to the amazing pass that Willis had, and I wish I could show it on screen, but I can't because of copyright. But, man, there is a lot to talk about when it comes to Malik Willis. First and foremost, let's look over his 2021 season stats. Now, his stats don't jump off the board like Kenny Pickett's did, but I would argue that he's had a much more consistent college career, especially in 2020 and 2021. He finished last year with 2,857 yards, 27 touchdowns, 12 picks. QBR rating is 70.0. What does that tell you? That tells you one thing. This is a project quarterback. This is a guy who you're not going to want to throw in there year 1. And there is teams out there that would do that. Which is why we see so many busts. But I go back to guys like Aaron Rodgers, who sat behind Brett Favre. Or even Patrick Mahomes. Look at what happened with him. He sat. Guys like that always find themselves having the best success because not only are they learning behind somebody else, but it gives them time to adjust to the NFL. Versus guys who get thrown out there, and not all the time does that happen, but in his case, it would really be nice to have him groomed. TJ Black says, like Ben too. Although Ben kind of fits more into that category of guys who came in their rookie season and absolutely killed it. There is a rare exception. And Ben is one of those guys. Although he did sit behind Maddox up until the injury. But going back to Willis, let's talk about some of the pros, because as I mentioned, his mobility has been questioned. But one of the biggest pros, and I already talked about it, is his arm strength. And they're saying the velocity behind his passes and his body position, which we saw at the Pro Day, is absolutely amazing. In fact, that play that I'm referring to, he was running out of the pocket, and he launched this thing. I don't know how many yards, but I do know he was throwing from, I believe, the 30-yard line, and it hit the end zone. Hit his receiver right in stride. So, his ability to throw on the run in very awkward positions, I don't know how that would translate to the NFL game, but it is still impressive to see a guy with an arm. Now, I will say this. You don't want to go drafting Willis just based on his arm. Because I could argue we already have a guy on the roster who has a strong arm, and that is Haskins. I think some people forget Dwayne Haskins has an amazing arm. His issue was decision making. And whether or not he's improved on that, I don't know if we'll ever know. Because he really hasn't got enough playing time. Let's get into some more pros, though, for Willis. He adds massive value as a runner, which is comical because they have him in the basement in regards to mobility. But they haven't. It says he adds massive value as a runner, draftable running back if he switched. Now, I don't know who put this together, but how do you say somebody could be a running back and be draftable if they were to make a switch to that position if they don't have any speed to them? So I don't know why the mobility was listed so low. And they also have his pocket presence very low in the basement. But they say he had 146 career broken tackles. So this guy can obviously get out of the pocket. Steel Twin says this report is so silly. I know. It makes no sense, bro. You say the guy's mobility is in the basement, yet, you know, he could be a running back and even be draftable if he was to switch to that position. Kind of doesn't make sense. But anyways, I believe that he could be very mobile. And I think what I just read to you kind of confirms that. Another pro to him is his footwork improved a ton from 2020 to 2021, and those are things you want to see. Not just in quarterback, but any position. A football player that makes improvements year to year is somebody that is what I would consider coachable. And also somebody that has work ethic. And by the way, I find it funny too, PFF actually has his quarterback comparison to Cordell Stewart. Just wanted to throw that out there. Some people would say Cordell Stewart wasn't that great for the Steelers, but as somebody who actually watched, I think he was just in the wrong era. And I've heard many, many people say the same. Whether or not that comparison is spot on, I don't know. But those are some of the pros when it comes to Willis. Let's talk about some negatives. He tends to stare down receivers. Now, I don't know if that's something that can be improved. I imagine it could be. But it is a negative. And that might explain the turnover rate. Which, honestly, I've seen worse. I have seen worse. But going back to last season, 27-12, I would have liked to see that be 10 and under. And maybe the touchdowns up in the 30s. But he also didn't have a ton of talent around him. And that's another thing some people need to consider when it comes to these quarterbacks. You got to look at what's around them before you go judging and really just basing your judgment on the statistics. I said it once and I'll say it again, man. Stats don't tell the entire story. I know they say numbers don't lie, and they don't. But there is other factors that go into things, specifically with football. And sometimes it doesn't matter how good of a quarterback you are. If you have turds around you, I mean, it's going to be really hard to shine. And it is what it is. Another negative for him is inconsistency. It says he's made some strides, but it still shows up too often. So this, I still think that falls into the coachable buckets, and I think it's something that could be fixed if he continues to work on his game, which, as far as I know, and from the people that are around him, they all say he has great work ethic. So it's not too far-fetched to believe that Malik Willis would be a great selection at 20. If he even makes it there, because again, like I said, there's other teams. I believe the Lions have multiple picks in the first round. So, and I think, look, Kansas City, even though they're not in the quarterback department right now, but Kansas City, there's a lot of teams with multiple picks. And the only reason I bring up Kansas City is because who's to say they don't trade one of those picks away? And you can't say that would never happen because the NFL this offseason has been absolutely insane. I would argue this is probably the most ridiculous offseason I've ever seen. Of all time. So much has happened that we never expected. I don't think anyone saw Hill being traded to the Dolphins. Show me a person, raise your hand if you believe that would have happened. So a team like Kansas City trading away one of those picks that they acquired from the Dolphins is not too far-fetched. Maybe another team that doesn't have a higher pick makes a trade with Kansas City to go and get one of these quarterbacks. So again, I hope, even though I wouldn't mind getting Willis, and even though I wouldn't mind getting the next guy on the list, I would still much rather see this team go defense. Specifically defensive line, especially if some of the guys who we're going to be talking about in future videos are available. And to give you a spoiler, they come out of the school of Georgia. Although, again, it's not just Georgia. I have a lot of people on the list, man. Leedy says, I never saw Hill going to the Dolphins, but oh my God, I can't wait to see them run over the Pew Stinkland Deflatrix. Yeah, I don't know how the Patriots are going to do this season, honestly, but we'll have to wait and see. Tyler, what's going on? He says, look at Josh Allen's college stats. They aren't great. Exactly. Very, 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 very good point. In fact, I think there was somebody else who brought that up in another video, somebody else's channel. And that was a great discussion. Josh Allen is definitely a great example of that. Which is why when he came and was, brought to Buffalo, and Twins, if they're still in the chat, maybe they can confirm this, but they'll remember how high I was on Josh Allen. Because I've always been one of those people to not always fixate my opinion on statistics. Statistics are great. They help support your argument, but sometimes there's other things you can look at with a quarterback, and I believe Willis is one of those guys. I really do. But it really is going to come down to how he transitions to the NFL. It could be a Dwayne Haskins situation as well. I mean, although Dwayne Haskins' college career was very, very nice, he had very good statistics, but then he got drafted by Washington, which is notorious for being a terrible organization. No offense to Washington fans, but that situation was not very good for him. But I would also argue on the flip side of that, he also didn't transition to the NFL correctly on his own part. So with all these guys, it really does come down to their work ethic and what they're willing to do to progress. Let's not stall anymore, man. Let's get to the next guy on the list. And this is officially the number one guy that I want if the Steelers are going to go quarterback. I know this may surprise some folks, and I've even had people arguing with me on social media. And I know there's going to be people in the chat that may not like this either. I've even seen Carson's name floating around in the chat a few times. But Desmond Ritter. And I'm going to be completely clear with all of you. A month ago, not even, this guy wasn't even on my radar. Partially because I didn't think the Steelers would even entertain quarterback after they, did what they've done. But even after picking up Mitch and looking at how much they are interested in Desmond Ritter, and just to be clear, they're as far as like who they want, first and foremost, we would never know. Because no one is actually in this chat, myself included, we're not sitting next to Tomlin and company knowing or hearing what they're actually saying. But just based on the expressions and who they've sent, Desmond Ritter and Willis pretty much next to each other. Next to each other. So why do I like Ritter? Let's not go by statistics, although we'll break that down. We'll mention that. For me, it's the fact that I feel like he would fit the system most. And arguably has the best presence in a pocket and ability to get out of the pocket. And I feel like he would do absolutely amazing in Matt Canada's system. And furthermore, the pro day performance, even though it was very limited, I tried my best to find a stream to actually watch the pro day. I don't even think it was televised, not in my area. But I did find some clips floating around on social media, and I was impressed just as much as I was with Willis. But it's more than that. When you go watch his game film, and I really highly recommend that. And Steeler Lee says, plus he's a proven winner in Cincinnati. Which, by the way, Cincinnati, they do not want us getting him, by the way. Just saying. Desmond really fits the bill in almost every single category when it comes to the Steelers and if they're interested in bringing a quarterback in. So let's read what 247 Sports has to say about Ridder. They say Ridder is now on the rise in Cincinnati football as he's been at Cincinnati all 5 years of his career. Starting the last 4, he had a Jalen Hurts-esque career progression from true freshman to senior year. And that is the key word, ladies and gentlemen, progression. Again, I want to go back to what I was saying about Willis, is you want to see a guy that's progressed. Those things matter. And not to like contradict myself, but look at the statistics as well. We do see some sort of consistency in that. His turnover rates have been very low in comparison to the others that we've talked about. But I want to talk about some of the pros and cons of Desmond Ridder. And by the way, PFF has him ranked 3rd as far as position goes. And they have him going in the 2nd round. Which, if for whatever reason, and again, I don't believe this will be the case, if he was to fall to the 2nd round, it would be a steal. And it would make a lot of sense for the Steelers to drop back in the 1st round, which I don't think they've ever done in recent memory. But again, the NFL offseason has been absolutely insane, and the Steelers themselves have been quite different. So it's not out of the question. Now, when it comes to Desmond, his arm strength is just above the middle. I would argue that after what we saw on the pro day, he made a pass very similar to what Willis did. I will say, obviously, Willis does have a much stronger arm. But if you go back and watch what the Steelers did last season and even in 2020, I don't think this team necessarily needs the biggest arm in Matt Canada's system specifically. So the arm strength isn't the greatest. Although you could argue he can still get down the field. His accuracy is ranked pretty decently high. 7 out of 10 is what they gave him there. His pocket presence is the same as his arm strength. They got that ranked 6 out of 10. Mobility, 6 out of 10. And his decision making is a 6 out of 10. So across the board, he is very consistent. And Leedy said it. Mobility does matter in Canada's system, which is why the 3 quarterbacks that I mentioned are in this list, is because they have some sort of mobility to them. And you have to be mobile, especially with this offensive line. Again, until they prove us otherwise, I'm basing it off of last season. Chad says, what's up, Cold Steel? I don't know what to believe anymore because someone said Raiders and Steelers sent Matthew a contract. We're going to be talking about that in a separate video as well. With this live stream, you guys can expect a lot more going forward, going back to what I used to do on the channel very consistently on a weekly basis. And trust me, that'll be coming up. Because I personally don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon. I think they're going to be waiting it out. And Twins took another great pro before I got to it, saying he's also a great leader and has an impressive win percentage. And leadership is something this team needs, especially on offense. I don't think anyone would argue that. But let's get into the pros for Desmond Ridder. He is a quick processor, best in the class, always plays that NFL speed mentality or already plays at an NFL speed mentality. That, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the reasons that gets him just ahead of Willis in my book. This guy is ready to go. He is NFL ready, standing at 6'4", 215 pounds. Very good winning percentage. Consistency throughout his entire career. When you look at Willis, you go back to his stats, again, not to contradict myself, but Willis had 2 seasons where he didn't do anything. And as far as Kenny Pickett goes, I mean, outside of last season, and as you heard, he was considered to be a 3rd-round guy. And honestly, I would not disagree with that. Kenny Pickett, let me be honest, I'm a Pittsburgh fan. I'm a Panthers fan. I'm sure everyone knows that. So in some ways, of course, I had some bias towards him, but as a Steelers fan, as somebody who's looking at the draft now and not, if I'm taking off those Panther glasses, that's just the stone cold truth, man. But anyways, another pro of Ritter, he's a straight line gas in the open field, big play threat as a runner, if unaccounted for, and there's plenty of highlight film showing that. Him running damn near 100 yards down the field. So he has the mobility. He has the ability to make decisions if needed. And as Leedy just brought up, he just brought up Harris, Najee Harris. You bring a guy like this in, if they run Matt Canada's system correctly, they have the wide receivers that fit our system. Because you got to remember, and some people are so confused, why did we get rid of Juju? It's because Juju doesn't fit our system anymore. He's a big receiver, big possession guy. But that doesn't really fit the Matt Canada. You got to remember, when we drafted Juju, it was a whole different offense. Which is why I'm not subscribing to the fire Matt Canada shit already. I'm just not. I really don't like to get on those trains because you can't judge a guy in his first season. I don't even think you can judge a guy in his second season. That's why a lot of these teams in the NFL suck. That's why teams like the Dolphins exist. It's why the Cleveland Browns, up until they accidentally got a winning season, have existed, is because they make poor decisions in regards to staff. They give up too easy. They give up extremely too easy. And it would be foolish for us to do the same in regards to Matt Canada. You got to give this guy time to get the right personnel. Believe it or not, that matters. There is a thing called chemistry, and there's a thing called scheme fit. And the unfortunate truth is, a lot of the guys that were on this roster the last 2 seasons were a part of a whole different scheme. It's very obvious if you've watched the Steelers last year specifically, you could clearly see that this is a different system. And it really does kind of center around Najee Harris. And that's why I believe the Steelers went first round with him. And a guy like Desmond Ritter at quarterback, with his ability to not only escape the pocket, but be able to be productive in that regard, would make him a threat because you have to worry about too many different areas. All it's going to take is a much better offensive line and a few weapons at receiver that fit the scheme. And if you want me to be more specific by that, I mean guys that are actually speedy, people that have speed to them. And I really think the Steelers are going to be looking to get a slot guy. And Sky Moore is one of those guys that kind of fits the bill there. Although Sky Moore could be arguably an outside guy. I think he can kind of go both ways. But I think the Steel Twins said that they could see Claypool being moved into that slot position. And honestly, we've seen some stuff from him as well. So we don't know what's going to happen. But I do believe in the first 3 rounds at least, we're going receiver somewhere. Let's go back to Desmond Ritter, and this is a huge pro for me. Coaches rave about his work ethic and leadership. Now, it's very easy for some of these guys to go to their pro day and showcase leadership like Willis did, for instance. You know, cheering on a receiver who dropped the ball. But when you have guys saying it prior to all that, coaches raving about your work ethic, improving on your weaknesses every year, this is a guy who is striving to be great. And, you know, all the other quarterbacks you have on your list, you can make arguments about. But I want a guy like that is going to strive to be better every single season. A guy that is already showing that he has NFL speed mentality. Meaning he's already up the par. He's already up to speed. Everyone knows the NFL is much faster than college. So to me, this just sounds like a perfect fit. And if you sit him for a year, well, then that just makes him even more better. It allows his confidence to grow. And furthermore, I mean, you don't know, this guy could beat out Mitch in the training camp. It's very possible. TJ Black says, let him develop with players, not rush it. Canada needs time. I agree. And no matter who we pick up, which is why I said Kenny Pickett shouldn't even be on this list, but I put him there because I know that a lot of people in Pittsburgh and a lot of people in Steelers Nation have been wanting him. So he was almost there at default. Really, this should be a two-person list for me, but so some of the cons when it comes to Ritter, because we have to talk about both sides. He has a very slow throwing motion. Little dip in his cocking face. I don't even know what that means, if I'm being honest. But I'm sure there's something to that. And you could tell PFF was kind of reaching for some of these cons because the next one is thin frame. Not as elusive as others, which has led to him being sacked more often than not. But again, that really doesn't mean anything because every quarterback, even Ben himself has been sacked, and he's been known to be a monster. So again, I don't really care for that con. And I guess the last con they would say is he beat up bad competition. I mean, we've heard that about a lot of players, though. We've heard that about guys like Antonio Brown, who, by the way, despite what we all may think and say about his mental health, no one would ever question his work ethic, which is exactly what we're talking about here with Desmond Ritter is work ethic. So those are the things they have him listed as far as negative goes on the list. But again, I would argue that Ritter is probably the best pick for the offensive scheme that we have. And again, I would not be mad if they went that direction at 20 in the first round. Do I want that to happen? Honestly, no. As much as, again, I told you in the beginning that I was going to sit here, I was going to brag about these guys, I still would rather see us go defense in the first round. If a guy like Ritter falls to us in the second, yeah, maybe then you go for it. But at the same time, we're really going to have to focus on wide receiver as well. All right, so before I get off of this subject, I see that TJ Black says, what about Matt Corral, who's currently ranked 4th on the list at the position rank? And I guess we could add him as a bonus. Let's talk about him. Let's look over some of his pros and cons. Corral is best when he's playing point guard, distributing the ball quickly and swiftly to all levels on the field. NFL offensive coordinators will take advantage of his timing and accuracy in the RPO and quick passing game. So yes, to TJ Black's credit, this is another guy you could throw on that list, especially when you're talking RPO and Matt Canada. That does make a lot of sense. If I'm not mistaken, and somebody can correct me, I don't think he was meant, or he had a pro day this week. I'm not sure. I could be wrong. I might be confusing him with how. I don't know. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. But to your question, Black, is he worth the pick? Based on what I just read as far as RPOs, it sounds like he would fit our scheme. But maybe we can do another video based on him. Maybe there's something I can do, like player profiles in the future on the channel for you guys. Obviously not doing every single player, but if I'm being honest, Matt has not been on my radar. But when you consider the fact that he's an RPO kind of guy, that does make sense. And technically, he is ranked higher than some of the other guys that I did mention. All right, so yes, Steel Twin says Matt did have a pro day. So there's that. Then I must be thinking of how. So I knew one of these guys did not have a pro day. So Matt was not it. That is somebody I'm going to have to look into, if I'm being honest. And I'm going to pull up his... Let's pull up his stuff right now. So, TJ Black in the chat, man, with a great recommendation. And maybe this guy should have been on my radar, if I'm being honest. I'm glad you brought it up, because now he's a part of the stream. If you look, again, statistics don't tell the whole story, but let's start there. 3,349 yards. 5 interceptions. And when you look at his career in college, I see, once again, consistencies. You go to the year prior to that, he had 29 touchdowns, 14 picks. And the year prior to that one, 6 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So, very solid, statistically. Now, if we go back to our little cheat, I call it the cheat sheet. Let's go over some of the pros for Matt here. He is an athlete who happens to play quarterback. Mobility is a big plus. So again, just based off of that, I have to go sit down and watch his game film. I have not done so because, again, I personally would rather see us go defense, and that's where a lot of my focus has been. Based on what I'm reading, that is the perfect fit for the Steelers in regards to the system that we're running. Steel Twin says, I'm not the biggest fan of Curl. Is it Coral or Corral? Somebody in chat, one or two. But Steel Twin says, definitely was not impressed with his pro day, but a fit, absolutely. I'll wait to make my judgment when I go watch the game film and find that pro day film. But if we're just basing this off of statistics, we see some consistencies there. And we're reading over some of the pros here. The first one was very good. It fits our system. All right, so TJ Black, thank you. He says Coral Raw. There we go. So I kind of had it. Next pro on the list is compact motion. Generates serious torque during his throwing motion, which is really good. That means he gets the ball out very quickly. And in our system, that is a must. He stands tall in the pocket and rips from a consistent base, accurate to all levels. So that in itself is interesting. Some of his cons, once again, it looks like PFF was reaching because they're talking about his frame size. Again, that's not something I would look too much into because anyone can build muscle. You know, this guy could gain some weight. I'm not looking into that too much. Not much throw shaping on his tape, lasers only. And then the last con would be looks like a different quarterback and lacks confidence when forced past first read. So that actually is a bad one. But I think that's something, again, that can be improved if he sits behind a guy for a year. And Steelers Lee says his only con is very small. Although I would say height doesn't always tell the story. And being 6'2", I mean, that's a solid height for a quarterback. Not every quarterback has to be 6'4", 6'5", you know? Especially a guy in this system, a guy in an RPO system, I don't think height really plays a factor. But let's look at some of these pros as far as the position traits. When it comes to arm strength, 8 out of 10. I mean, this is up there with Willis. In fact, I think it's damn near close. I think it's close. Accuracy, 7 out of 10. Very solid. Steel Twin says, I'll give him this. He's tough as nails, and his release is insane. I mean, again, when I look at this, even though they have him listed on the board as number 4 in the list, when you look at his position traits, it's very, very good. Some of these other quarterbacks that I even mentioned, like Desmond, their position traits have been lower in certain areas. This guy has a very consistent all-around board. His arm strength being his best ability. Mobility, they rank that 7 out of 10. And decision-making is 6 out of 10, which honestly, as long as it's over 5, that is something I wouldn't mind looking into. Like, if I'm Kevin Colbert, if I'm Mike Tomlin, I look at this and then I want to see what the work ethic's like so that we could see if he would be willing to sit for a season and learn. So, shout out to TJ Black in the chat, man, for recommending Matt. I completely wrote him off of my list, and I did not look into him. There's actually Sam Howell's another guy I didn't really look into. So those two I definitely got to look into when I get off here. So shout out to Black for that one, for sure. And the bottom line for what PFF said in regards to him is drafting Corral should be seen as an investment, not a quick fix to a team's passing offense. So when you really dissect this, and this again is going off of the fact that I haven't watched game film on him yet, but basing on what I've read, looking at his statistics throughout his career, unofficially I'm going to say this guy could potentially be him right next to Desmond as far as perfect fits. In fact, he might even get a slight edge just because he's coming out of RPO. So once again, dude, seriously, TJ, man, shout out to you for recommending this because it wasn't even on my radar. Now, we talked about quarterbacks. Do I want to see it? No. But it won't be a thing where I jump off a ledge if they decide to go quarterback in the first round. It would kind of be like last season, not as much, but last year I was kind of disappointed because I felt like we should have went centered, and I was even more disappointed when the second came around. But looking at how Najee Harris turned out, I'm not too mad. And nor did I jump ahead of myself and said, oh, this guy's not going to be good. Or he's going to be a bust. I hate when people do that. You got to let these guys play out and see what they do over at least a 3-year period. I mean, how many people in chat, and I know for a fact that it was a high percentage, a lot of people gave up on Bud Dupree, and despite what he did with Tennessee and the injuries and all that stuff, I don't think any of us saw him bouncing back and having a great season prior to leaving Pittsburgh. Point being, give these guys a chance before you judge them. And if the Steelers decide to go quarterback, that means they know more than I do. And right now, Tuitt, this is a guy we don't know where he stands in regards to where he's coming. Is he coming back to Pittsburgh or is he going to retire? We don't know. But the Steelers obviously know more than we do. So if they decide to go quarterback, that must mean they feel very confident in what they have on the defensive line. And they might even address that later in the draft because there's other guys available. But there you go. I think we'll spend the rest of the time live here talking to you guys in chat. If you guys want to talk about any other topics, we can do so. But before we do that, I did want to mention the sponsor of not only this video, but of the channel, FOCO. If you guys don't know who FOCO is, they are pretty much a sports brand. They sell official NFL, NBA, I think MLB, if I'm not mistaken. But MLB, NBA, college, even soccer and entertainment. They have everything. But more specifically, they have some great Steelers merchandise, and they make a lot of collectibles. And for you Ben Roethlisberger fans out there, they just dropped number 2 in the Big Ben series. And I got to tell you, I have these on the way. They are coming into my possession. You guys will be seeing these on the shelves behind me whenever I get them up. But man, these guys are awesome. Now, unfortunately, the promo code that I told you guys to use, the 412SC, which stands for Steelers Country, that will not work on this item specifically. Anything that's listed as pre-order will not be able to be used on those. But anything like the t-shirts, their shoes, again, they have a ton of merchandise on the shop. Definitely recommend going out and seeing if there's anything you guys want to get. And if you use our code, you'll save 10% off your order. Link is down in the description if you want to support the channel, along with the promo code. And shout out to these guys because we're going to be doing some giveaways in the near future. With them, they'll be giving us some stuff to give away. So if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do so. Make sure you hit the like button as well, guys. And with that said, shout out to FOCO. Let's get back to chat before we get out of here on this Friday night. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I'm still trying to get back into the groove of doing live streams. I got to be honest. Taking 3 months off. I didn't think it was going to be this hard to get back, but yeah, the updates have been very slow around here because I'm running the website. I'm pretty much doing everything by myself. And shout out to Dan from the Steel Twins. He's been helping around doing some articles, but man, TJ Black says, who at receiver is your top 2 takes? That is tough too. That is tough too. I will say Sky Moore is high on my list because I feel like he fits our scheme. But I have mocked Chris Olave. I don't know how he gets to where he is on some of my mocks, but I don't see him dropping to 20. But I would not mind him. The issue with receiver for me is who we have currently on the roster. Now, me and Dan off stream, we were kind of discussing this as far as Claypool. Like, I'm curious to see what you guys in chat say. Can you see Claypool being in the slot position? Because I kind of view him as an outside guy. Even though last season it wasn't pretty, we all know that he had his worst season out of the 2. But Dan seems to think he wouldn't be too bad in slot position, which means the Steelers could go with an outside receiver. Yeah, Sean, Jordan Davis is my dream pick as well. I'm trying not to say it because I don't want to spoil the mock draft. Or even Wyatt, honestly. Both of those guys out of Georgia. But it's not just those 2. I have a ton of freaking guys that I would love to see in the black and gold, man. TJ says, kind of cannot see, not much. Daniel says, not really. Steel Twin says he's an outside guy for sure, but his best games last year was in the slot. But even 2020. Even, I would argue 2020, we've seen them use him in different positions. But, I mean, with his height, I feel like the potential to be a solid outside guy is there. And again, I don't want to crap on Ben, but I sometimes often wonder, was Ben's arm strength not really there, and was he not able to get down the field? I mean, we just don't know. Steel Twin says, all I know for sure is we ain't going to go receiver round 1 like I wrote in my article. Yes, he wrote a very great article on why we should not go receiver in the first round. And you guys should definitely check that out. In fact, I'll pull it up here. Let me pull it up here. By the way, here's the website, SteelersCountry.com. I know some of you guys came in the chat early and it was like, who is this guy? Is this just Blaze or Cold Steel? Yes, but I switched the channel to Steelers Country and launched a website. In fact, we are live on the website right now. If you guys ever want to come over to the website, you can watch the live stream directly from here. But anyways, where's that at? Why the Steelers will not draft a wide receiver in the first round. You guys should definitely go over to SteelersCountry.com when this stream is over and check out Dan from the Steel Twins post. Like I said, he has quite a bit here. And in addition to that, there will be more articles coming from him, but he also has, should the Steelers trade up for Malik Willis? So those are just a few different articles that he wrote. Very good stuff, if I must say. Steel Twin says, I'm not saying move him to the slot completely, but if they get a big body guy, he's the guy I'd ideally move. Exactly. And honestly, but that's the thing. It's like, if we all know we need receiver, but if they go with a big guy on the outside, I don't think you move Deontay Johnson there. I know he has the size of a slot receiver, but I feel like Deontay Johnson has really found his role. His biggest issues was drops, which last year he improved on dramatically. But I noticed you put him in a slot and he goes across the middle. That's where those drops become consistent. I just don't think he really works there. So Claypool could ideally be the guy, maybe not he could be like one of those 50-50 play slot, but outside as well. But I'm saying for a permanent solution, or at least for the next few years, I don't know. TJ Black says Ben's strength was a small problem. His accuracy was the huge problem. Yeah, and I always have to remind people, I'm not talking about Ben's overall career, just to be clear. We're just specifically talking about old Ben and his 2021 season. Leedy says, opinion, until we find a strict center, it will remain a glaring need. The centers we have on our roster are guards, and none of them are true centers. This is absolutely true. I just don't think this is the year. Like, you got Linderbaum, but outside of that, there's not much. So this might not be the best year for that. Might not be the best year. But I would like to see them address that at some point in the future. But let's see. We've been going live at least over an hour now. I'm going to keep this one a little bit shorter than what I want to do in the future. I want to try to get some people on the live stream. We'll be talking about that next week on how you guys can be a part of that. Steel Twins, obviously, at some point will get on here with me and we'll talk about some different things. But man, I'm going to go watch some game film. Thanks to TJ Black for the recommendation, because I'm definitely going to do a video on him at some point in the future here in the next week or so. But man, it's been a great stream. You guys are awesome in the chat. If you guys haven't liked the video, please do so, because we got to get back into the system here. I think YouTube kind of kicked us to the door, being away for 3 months. 007 says Mason Cole is a center, but Mason Cole's kind of a backup guy. He's not really, Could he become that? Absolutely, but we'll have to wait and see. We would have to wait and see. But anyways, I'm going to get on out of here, man. I'm going to go enjoy the rest of my Friday. I hope you guys do the same. I will have an announcement Sunday on the channel, so stick to the community tab for those details. I am bringing back the memberships, which I removed 3 months ago. I didn't feel like it would be right to continue charging people if I'm not making content. I guess, that doesn't really make sense, but yeah, memberships will be coming back this Sunday, and I have some really cool stuff that'll be attached to those, and if you want to support the channel for a small fee, you can do so. But until then, I am Justin Nostop from Steelers Country, a.k.a. Cold Steel, and I'm out. Steelers Nation, you take it easy.